Hey everybody, welcome to Hear Us Out. I'm Patrick.
And I'm Paul. How's it going?
And he is Paul. I'm going good, my friend. Do you know who I'm almost going as well as? One Tom Cruise. Now, the only difference between me and Tom Cruise, because we're practically the exact same height, everything else is the only difference between me and Tom Cruise. And I'm not just talking about, our facial features. I think our bank accounts and our ability to be one of the biggest movie stars in the world for a few generations. That's kind of how people tell us apart.
And I haven't seen you do as crazy amounts of stunts
True.
as he's
True.
done. That is one. Though I haven't also seen you and Tom Cruise in the same room. So
I can't say for legal reasons. I just can't say. All of the various churches would be after me, I think. Paul, we're going to do a run through of Tom Cruise movies, and we're going to pick. You're going to pick five. I'm going to pick five. That'll make a kind of a selection of 10 great Tom Cruise movies. The guy has an incredible body of work, and for anybody who's going to get, well, are you doing this in an ordered list? They're not ranked. We're not going into depth of these are his best performances or these are the best entire works that he's in. We'll talk about why we made each pick and why it makes it kind of a here's if I was grabbing, I was going to say DVDs, but probably be Blu-rays at this stage. If I was going to bookmark five Tom Cruise movies on a streaming service, these are the ones I'd probably bookmark first.
yeah, that's so each criteria is going to be different, and let's
Yeah.
go into it.
So, Paul, I think, look, we got to get the Mummy out of the way because we were both obviously going to pick that.
Oh yeah,
But
best body of work.
it's possibly the finest film ever made. In the Upside Down universe, it is easily, when you look at his body of work, it's up there with his worst, if not his
Yeah.
worst.
I see. Film wise, yeah, I would definitely agree. Film wise, his acting in it, and many of the other actors in it, perfectly fine. It's just the film, just the film itself. I think that's the biggest problem with it.
Yeah, and yeah.
A really damning indictment,
So
actually.
there's nothing wrong with that movie but the movie. I got you.
Yeah.
So now that we've gone to the bottom, there's a few that we haven't picked, and I wanna make a point. I'm gonna make a point by bringing two things up on screen. There are two movies that I didn't choose from, and as it turns out, now that I only saw Paul's list just before we went live. Tropic Thunder and Magnolia, Paul, they weren't eligible for me. And the reason they weren't eligible is they're not Tom Cruise starring movies. He is in them. Tropic Thunder, it's a smaller part. Magnolia, it's a larger part, but it's still a big ensemble movie. And he's great in both. But neither one of us picked these. It did make it very clear, though, and anybody can do this. Go to Tom Cruise's IMDb page, look under actor, start somewhere around, risky business, and then see how many things he wasn't the star of. Very, very few. The man has like 40 starring roles in movies that you've heard of.
Yeah,
That's a heck of a hit rate.
yeah. No, it's he's very much positioned himself into the lead role in a lot of these films. So which I can only say, or either the lead role or is part of the lead roles, because that's another thing. He's either part of because it could be a dual film kind of thing, a partnership film. But as an ensemble, as in the list of ensemble movies is very short.
He has so few side parts or even second people parts. It's incredible, and I hadn't realized it till I started looking at it, and then it hit me like a sledgehammer because of these two, because they're kind of the big exceptions. And I think that's just mad.
Would Rock of Ages just? I don't want to.
Rock of
Rock of Ages seems to be a good ensemble movie as well.
That wasn't one of your choices, no? Rock of Ages.
No,
I'll be honest, I've never seen it, and I guess that is ensemble as well. Have you seen it?
I have.
Is it as bad as people say?
No.
Okay.
Nothing is. I will say this: nothing is as bad as people say. It's not a great movie. It's not a great movie, and it's very weird to have Tom Cruise as as a as a legendary rock person. It's also slightly it's a musical as well, which is
it's
when I
all-
went in, I was just like, this is going to be like the Spinal Tap,
almost famous for Spinal Tap or something, right?
yeah, kind of thing. And then it was just like, oh, this is a musical essentially, with very famous people in it.
I
It's weird.
yeah, I gotta say, well, you say that nothing's ever as bad as people say, and I say The Mummy. The Mummy is as bad as we've just said, but yeah,
is-
in
okay,
general, you're right. You're right. While we're around that Rock of Ages period, which is around 2012, I kind of want to point out that there's another thing that Tom Cruise has. He has been very consistent every year or every other year. He has been making a big movie or releasing a big movie, and he don't seem to get waves of doing some of his best work in a row. You know, out of 5 movies over the space of 5 years, 4 of them will be really quite good. And after Rock of Ages, actually just before it, he did Mission Impossible 4: Ghost Protocol, one of the best Mission Impossibles.
Yeah.
Just after it was Jack Reacher, Oblivion, Edge of Tomorrow. We might hear about that again soon. Then Mission Impossible 5: Rogue Nation, one of the other good. Like, these are the good Mission Impossibles. He has a habit that when you find one good movie of his and look either side of it, you start seeing
Yeah, it's either the end, the start, or one of the middle films of probably a good row of films, and then he'll do something that's like, I don't know, passion project or something that he just liked the look of the script or something like that, and then that's the buffer zone for the next, I guess, group of.
he was trying out his Rock of Ages things. Like, again, you know, we did Top Gun, Color of Money, Cocktail, Rain Man, and Born on the 4th of July in a row.
Yeah,
And Days of Thunder was after that. And I will defend Days of Thunder,
I-
but I don't think now is the time.
no, I would defend Days of Thunder as well, but I also don't think it's on a hill I'm dying on, but it's a hill that I'll definitely march up.
But here's why it isn't. So, Color of Money, Cocktail, Top Gun, Color of Money, Cocktail, Rain Man, Born on the 4th of July, Days of Thunder, Far and Away. So, you see, Days of Thunder wasn't the drop off in that sequence in the end, for anybody who wants to call it Top Gun with cars. Far and Away is, you know, among the list of the films I think are some of his worst. It's up there in his rotten meter for me.
I would definitely agree. I think it's a more kind of, I guess that felt like more of a kind of step backwards towards kind of, I guess, heartthrobby kind of elements of stuff, you know.
Also, dude, we're Irish. It was tough. It was tough. I'm not going to say we'll never forgive them for making Far and Away, but let's just say it doesn't get played around here too often.
Also, if you don't know what we're talking about, there is a video that we have which is on Irish accents that you definitely should go take a look at, because then you'll definitely understand why we have a special place in our heart for that film.
I want to be
That is
respected, Mary. Tom Cruise, the Leprechaun, and yeah, again, same height, fighting for the small man here. But yeah, and then he did, you know, okay, so Born on the 4th of July got thrown in there. Neither one of us picked that, but it was in serious consideration for me, as was the one on the other side of Far and Away, and that is A Few Good Men. And I think when people go, oh, I hate Tom Cruise, and then say, I don't think he's a great actor, I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. We all don't like Tom Cruise for some weird thing inside us. Like, everybody seems to have it in them in some way to not like Tom Cruise. I know for years people would say, what do you think to Tom Cruise? I'd be like, I don't really like him. I don't know why. He's never done anything to me. Just, but he's a great bloody actor. You can't say that he's not a good actor, and you can't ignore films like Born on the 4th of July. You can't ignore A Few Good Men, and his performances in them. And people go, oh, well, Jack Nicholson was everything great about A Few Good Men. Really? You try acting against him and doing what Tom Cruise managed to pull off.
Yeah, like that courtroom scene, like one of the top cinematic moments. So like, yeah. I can't in any way deny the guy, you know, his skill as an actor. So
For sure. So, Paul, let's see. Will we get into an pick? How about one of yours first? And I'm going to ask you not to pick the one that we know we both were going to pick until last, if that's okay.
I was going to say, do you have a question for me of before we go into it, just to kind of give a hint of?
Well,
is
yeah.
Is that on your list though?
No.
Okay,
And
we'll go
strangely, then actually you're right, Paul, because I said to Paul before this when he sent me the list, I was like, I'd actually preloaded images, assuming that I knew Paul well enough to pick his 5. Well, guess what, folks? I got one wrong. And that one was, and I have to find it here, that one was Minority Report. It's a film that Paul and I disagree on slightly. I think it's a good movie. Paul thinks it's a better movie than I think it is. And we both agree that it's good. We're just slightly different in the spectrum. That's what a disagreement between us is, by the way. We usually agree and then just have a 3% divide, unless it's Thor 2 and Captain America, in which case we're at different sides of the room and we'll never bring it up online.
Which is, I'll be honest with you, like, what is this? Thor: Love and Thunder has definitely made that gap a little bit smaller.
Yeah, good point. But Minority Report, I was sure you were going to pick it. Because, like, a heck of a film. I know it holds a special place in your heart. How come this didn't make your final 5?
So, Minority Report is surrounded by kind of, I guess, really good movies as well. But the thing with Minority Report is that it's the reason that film is so good is because it's the whole package. Like, it's not just Tom Cruise. It's everybody in it. It's all the sets. It's everything. Like, they really put the money into it and stuff like that. But the thing is that Tom Cruise didn't bring anything special for me into that role, kind of thing. It was very he's very good, and he entirely embodies it. But
somebody else could have played the role.
Well, I'm more saying that's like, you could definitely go, that's a Jack Reacher. It's Jack Reacher kind of in the future kind of thing. Like, it's to me, it's boilerplate Tom Cruise action acting.
Gotcha.
Thing. So that's the reason more that I didn't choose it, is because that it's, when I watch it, I enjoy it for the full experience rather than just Tom Cruise, and I fully enjoy him in it, but it does feel like a boilerplate Tom Cruise role.
And it feels like a Steven Spielberg movie as well. So yeah, that's the weird thing about people like Steven Spielberg and the man who directed Dunkirk and
Christopher Nolan.
Thank you. Christopher Nolan's name fell out of my head, which is impressive. Sometimes it's not a Christian Bale movie, it's a Chris Nolan movie. So I think, yeah, I wouldn't have picked it for other reasons also, but I absolutely, one of the reasons it didn't make my list is the one that you just listed, so that makes a lot of sense. I still can't believe that Born on the 4th of July and A Few Good Men didn't make it through for me, but 5 slots, it's hard to fill. Lots of things went in and got pulled back out.
That's, yeah, I like the red string came out. And, kind of thing, because I think this is like our Tom Hanks one. I think this is because we're going through the Toms. The Tom Hanks one was also very much the same. There's a lot of body of work that's very, very good, but it comes down to personal choice, I guess.
The Tom Arnold episode is going to be very, very short because we're both going to pick True Lies and then just hang up on each other. So Paul, what would you like from your list?
I'm going to go for probably one of my most interesting picks. It's going to be Interview with a Vampire.
Interview with a Vampire.
Yes. So, if you don't know about Interview with a Vampire, it's an interview with a vampire. It's based on a book by Anne Rice, which was made in 1976, written in 1976. The film is 1994. And the reason I chose this is because Tom Cruise was not anyone's pick for Lestat. No one picked him. Anne Rice was furious about him being it. Like, she was like ready to pull the plug on the whole thing.
I remember all this happening.
Yeah, like it was incredible about what went on when Tom Cruise was announced as Lestat. And man, did he nail that! Like, he definitely took the character. It's a different Lestat from the books. So any Anne Rice fans who are gonna come and try kill me, it's a definitely different Lestat from the books, but it is very similar to it. And Tom Cruise definitely takes a very good role and makes it his own, especially against like Brad Pitt. Like,
And Brad Pitt got quite a kick in at the time too. It was one of those ones where nobody seemed to trust the casting and egg on their face because it turned out really bloody well.
But that's yeah, like that's the thing. Like having Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt, like two massive names at the time, like to essentially play two vampires. Like yeah, I enjoy it so much. It's such a different role that Tom Cruise took up as well, or Tom Cruise took up. Like he's very charismatic. He's very impulse controlled, not much because he's very live in the moment, all powerful kind of. He's a very sinister evilness to him as well, kind of thing. That it's like he's a charming person, but there's a shark behind that charming facade kind of thing. And alongside Brad Pitt's Louis, it's very hurtful and stuff like that, because like Brad Pitt's Louis is the heart kind of humanity, whereas Tom Cruise's Lestrade is kind of like he's lived for so long as a vampire that it's kind of like it's, you know, that form of life is worn off on him, and it's such a really good comparison, and both of those actors really bring an A game, but Tom Cruise definitely pulls it completely.
I couldn't agree more. I didn't choose it, but the word I would use for this one is it's a performance. You know, sometimes you'll talk about whatever an actor does or brings or whatever it might be. This is one of those times I would class it as a performance. And I think it was a very powerful one. And this was back in those days when I would have been like, yeah, you know, don't know if I like Tom Cruise. But then you'd watch him in this and go, yeah, but God, he's good, isn't he? He's yeah. That guy's got the stuff.
It's so out of his normal like, I guess, wheelhouse that it's a standout moment for me, kind of thing. So,
which, Paul, then I will switch to one of my picks. On that very, very same vein, and sorry, I've not marked things as well as I had planned, so I will take a second sometimes to find things. But I chose Collateral. I chose Collateral for the same reason of it's out of his wheelhouse, and he nailed it. You know, Michael Mann's best film, everybody says Heat. You know, De Niro, Pacino. I'm going to get thrown off the internet for this, but I think Collateral is better. And I, weirdly, and again, I don't know when it comes up that I don't like people. I don't always enjoy Jamie Foxx, but Jamie Foxx deserved the credit he got for this. But I think an awful lot of that is, again, down to Tom Cruise and the performance that he brought to this. For anybody who hasn't seen Collateral, I think the Interview with a Vampire, as you say, it described itself, Paul, in its title. Yeah. Collateral, Tom Cruise plays against type. He is a villain. He is the bad guy. He is a killer. He's got 5 jobs to do in a night. He grabs Jamie Foxx's cab to bring him to go and do these 5 jobs. I'm not going to tell you anything else about it, but let's just say he is menacing, he's controlling, he's controlled, he starts to unravel a little. You know, he can do the Tom Cruise action side of it, but he's not doing it in a Tom Cruise action way. The action scenes are good, but they're still Vincent, the menacing main character. He doesn't slip out of character when doing the action hero that he'd already become at that stage. I think some of the exchanges that they have inside the cab, when you look at the intensity that Tom Cruise can bring, you're like, why didn't he spend his career playing a lot more very, very bad and evil people? Because he can project intensity, and he very much has control of how that becomes positive or negative. And I just think, you know, Michael Mann's best film. So yeah, it was nice being on the internet with you for a while there, Paul. All the Heat people are going to come and get me.
I agree with that. That's a fantastic choice, and I do think that Jamie Foxx is kind of, because it was one of his newest biggest roles kind of thing. I do think his nervousness of playing against Tom Cruise at the time probably really did inject itself into the character, which made such tasteful exchanges within the cab of a nervous driver, a steadily growing nervous driver, cab driver, to Tom Cruise's very controlled at the start contract killer.
Yeah.
And it's just it's menacing. That's a great way of describing Vincent. Like,
I'm going to be watching it again soon because I've realised I've left it too long. Jamie Foxx is a multi-talented person, by the way. For anybody who thinks that I don't have a problem with Jamie Foxx. I think he's incredibly talented. I just don't always gel with him in acting roles. But this is one of those times where you can't gel with Tom Cruise in his acting role because he manages to keep you away from gelling, but he still has that magnetism that pulls you towards him, which is Tom Cruise. It is one of his exceptional performances in an exceptional film.
I do agree.
So, Paul, what next for you?
I'm going to choose Vanilla Sky.
Vanilla Sky. I've got an admission to make. Never seen all of it.
Have you not?
Yeah, the first time I was supposed to see this, like, sat down to watch it because I missed it in the theater, missed it in the movies. Sat down to watch it, and it was just kind of at that point in my life where there was enough going on that I could get pulled away from movies and never got back to it. So I don't know what happens in Vanilla Sky. And it starts off heading in a direction of some really odd stuff.
Well, this is the thing. It's so Vanilla Sky, for anyone who doesn't know, it's essentially about a publisher mogul who is Tom Cruise, and he's in a car crash. And then everything kind of spirals out of control from there, kind of thing. It's a lot more cerebral than I thought I was going to be watching. I thought it was going to be just a kind of, I guess, when I first was sitting there to watch it, I definitely thought it was going to be like a kind of well-acted, kind of tragic, kind of, or kind of like, I don't know, coming to terms kind of thing, because it's meant to be that he's a very handsome, publisher person, which is, and then he is in a tragic accident, which is, and certain his looks are kind of taken away, but it goes into a position in which it was very cerebral, and it's just a very interesting step outside of what I would take as Tom Cruise's film. It's not the best film in his catalog. As we said, there's a few good men and which is Born on the 4th of July, but it's one of those ones that it's just like, it's so weird for him to be in, kind of thing, that it's like it's one that you have to watch,
Yeah.
like it might not be, but it's a very good cerebral kind of film, questioning a lot of kind of like questions on reality and choice and stuff like that, but yeah, it's just the thing that I have to bring up in the sense of, just to get people even to just watch it more, and get their thoughts on it as well.
And that's good, because genuinely, if I was pulling the 10 Blu-rays or DVDs off the shelf, to take to the desert island to watch just Tom Cruise movies, I would pull Vanilla Sky, because I didn't get to see all of it. I know enough people who respect it for what it is, and it had me when it had me. Just life and time pushes you away from things. So I'm glad you picked it. And I'm going to be watching more Tom Cruise movies because of this episode, by the way, because there's a few gaps that I have to fill in. It was actually one film I'd never heard of called Lions for Lambs, which I'm going to throw up the poster of because I don't know if anybody else has ever heard of it. Robert Redford and Meryl Streep are both in it. How did I never hear about that, by the way? This is not one of our picks, folks. This is an aside.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't know it myself. That's the thing.
Was it just not advertised over here or something that they slipped it in under the radar? Anyway, so Paul, so far you have Vanilla Sky and Interview with a Vampire, and I have Collateral. And what would be a good Vanilla Sky for me? I think I'm going to go for something quite recent. This might surprise anybody, but American Made. American Made, where Tom Cruise, again, plays to type and against type a little bit in weird and interesting ways. It's still very much a Tom Cruise movie, but it's about the synopsis, without going into the real world history that they play around with in it. He essentially starts running drugs and guns and money for the CIA, and all sorts of madness ensues in his life, and he's a very carefree and daring type with all that. It's if you've ever seen the Ozarks, imagine that condensed and made into a Tom Cruise movie. I really enjoyed the movie, but I very much enjoyed his performance, because it's an older Tom Cruise now who has all the experience of playing all these different types of characters, and it's the one movie of all of his since, like, back in the Top Gun days, that he seems like he's really enjoying himself. You know, and that comes across. It's why I would grab it from that DVD shelf and go, it's a great film. It's a great story. It's a lot of fun. It's really quite interesting. It's quite, you know, it's quite mind blowing in how grand they get about things. It's funny in places, but it's real. I like actually watching Tom Cruise be happy, as it turns out, because he just looks like he really enjoyed making that movie.
The other thing about that film is that it is slightly, for me anyway, it was a slight under the radar one, so I haven't actually watched it, but like, it is one of those ones where I've seen the trailer a couple of times and I've just gone, I gotta give that a go. Like, it does seem like it's just Tom Cruise is having a laugh, so I definitely feel like I do have to give it a go.
You'll enjoy it, I think. It's not one of those ones. Again, this is not Born on the 4th of July.
Yeah.
It's not Color of Money. It's not, you know, it's not Interview with a Vampire. But it is still really different for Tom Cruise, even though it looks like it's really not different for him. When you're watching it, there's a definite different kind of sense to it all. So yeah, I kind of chose it in the Vanilla Sky vein of it's for the movie and his part in it.
Yeah. It's a good choice.
So, Paul, I'm going to be watching Vanilla Sky. You're going to be watching American Made. That worked out nicely for us. What would you like to go for next?
I'm going to go for Risky Business.
This was a surprise to me. Why Risky Business?
It's the origin story, essentially.
Well, it is. It's the Tom Cruise movie star origin story. That's true.
You know, it's
this is where he got his powers. He was bitten by the spider.
That's the thing. Like, this is the origin story thing, and it's such a weird, because he's been groomed as a heartthrob kind of character, and back in like because the film was made or released in 1983, and back that time there's like, you know, there's a whole host of heartthrob kind of characters that are coming out, like, you know, Robert Downey Jr. himself, which goes
You had the whole of the Brat Pack. You had everybody doing their thing.
Like loads of Tom Hanks, like, you know, loads of people were coming out as kind of heartthrobby kind of like people, and Tom Cruise was also kind of being groomed in that sense of kind of, because Risky Business is like a sex comedy kind of thing. I think is how it's described.
Which is what they did in '83, by the way, people. So let's not judge it by today's standards.
No, but it's just one of those ones that it's just like, it's the origin story of Tom Cruise. Because if you look from now to then, like, you would not, if you were just like, what's Tom Cruise's like first movie, and now probably like it's some cop movie or some kind of, like, you know, they would have an idea in their head of what it would be. I bet you that if you were saying it's Risky Business, where he's a teen who's just like, his parents go away, you know, and essentially it's him having a party.
Yeah,
it's like it's the stereotypical teenager in a house kind of party movie thing.
Oh, these are the days of Weird Science, etc., where everything was over sexualized, and having a house to yourself was all you needed for a plot for a movie. And usually a Porsche 928 did show up somewhere in it, in both those movies, by the way. Yeah, but the weird thing for me is, Paul, him sliding in his socks with the shirt. That is where if you said to me what was Tom Cruise's first movie, I would have said Risky Business, but it wasn't. That's the bit that surprised me, was that there was something before Risky Business called Losing It.
Which is,
never heard of it before. I looked all this up.
I haven't seen it, but it's that one with it's the poster with the 4 kids on it, isn't it?
Well, I have a different poster, but I think there's multiples for this. But yeah, it's again a teen up to trouble kind of thing. I think it's possibly about losing virginity, just reading into the title, I guess. But that's, like, you're right. Risky Business is the Tom Cruise origin story. Damn it, that's a that's a really
The only
good one.
reason, like, it's not like it comes along as the like Lampoon movies, or as you said, weird science, or it definitely is like it's the 1983 version of like American Pie kind of thing. It's, it's not highbrow in any kind of way, but it is Tom Cruise's kind of breakout moments kind of thing as a heartthrob kind of character.
You're on fire, brother. It is American Pie for '83.
And then his trajectory is so much more different than what that movie was going to suggest. Like he played that movie and then took on roles that people, as I said, Interview with a Vampire and a bunch of other ones that I bet people were just like, man, Tom Cruise from Risky Business is doing Jerry Maguire, or, like,
Yeah, it is a weird one, and you're right. It deserves a place on this list because it is. And I'm not going to say it again, the origin story thing, but it is his genesis. You're right. Great pick, dude. Great pick. Oh man. I haven't seen that since the 80s.
I haven't seen it for a while, but yeah,
It's over 30 years for me. That is crazy. But yet I can still see him in my head sliding in on the hardwood floor in his socks, because that became such an iconic scene.
yeah. Once again, another iconic movie scene kind of thing that is like courtroom. But that's the thing, is how can you get from the courtroom of A Few Good Men to the sliding in piano start of Risky Business? Kind of thing.
You do it all via Top Gun, I think, which is incredible when you consider that. Okay, I'm going to squeeze one in before our ad break, if that's okay, Paul. So you've had, and I'm going to recap yours again, Vanilla Sky, Risky Business, and Interview with a Vampire. So what's my risky business in this? I think I'm going to go an interesting direction and say it's disappeared. There it is. It's Rain Man. Because Rain Man was one that I don't think people thought Tom Cruise could do. Remember, he had done Cocktail, Color Money, Top Gun, Legend, Risky Business. I don't think at the time Dustin Hoffman was viewed in a very different light, and Tom Cruise was not the guy that you'd plan to put beside him and go, he'll hold his own. Particularly like in the film that they made. Dustin Hoffman's performance is, it blew me away at the time watching it. It's legendary now for all sorts of reasons. But Tom Cruise is way better in that movie, being what Tom Cruise can do really well. And it's that thing, earlier on I said everybody kind of hates Tom Cruise. At some part of them seems to hate him. He's able to use that. He's able to use that against people when he's acting. He's able to use the fact that he can be a lead that you don't like until you have to go on the journey with him to like him a bit more. And this was a film where he did that. He brought that with bells on. Absolute scored aces on that one.
Yeah.
Anybody who doesn't know the story of Rain Man, Dustin Hoffman, it's one of the first movies that kind of introduced the idea of autism or people on a spectrum at all. And Tom Cruise plays a brother who's estranged from his family in obviously some interesting and weird ways, and is getting to spend time with his brother for the first time in a long, long time. And it's about them understanding each other and the world around them. And that's what makes this film great. But you can take Tom Cruise out of that and maybe replace him with one or two other actors, but it'll always be a slightly different film.
Yeah, no. You nailed it on the head with having Tom Cruise can be unlikable and then likable. Like, he does that very well. Kind of like, cocky, kind of like, crappy person that builds into a human being kind of thing. He does that very, very well.
Yeah.
And I think it comes out a lot in Rain Man.
Oh, language warning. He has a shit-eating grin that he can pull, and you're just like, oh, yeah, I want to slap that. Just weird smile off your face, dude. Yeah, so, like, Rain Man was a tough choice. I slid things in and out on the list, but it kept ending up going back onto the list, so I realized, I'd probably take it, because every time I watch Rain Man, for all its flaws, both performances emotionally grabbed me.
Yeah, I definitely get that.
So, Paul, I'm going to throw us to a short ad break, and we will be right back with our top 2 each. It's going to get good. See you in a second.
See you later.
You obviously like 2 people talking about movies, or you wouldn't even be seeing this ad. Well, don't tell anyone. But Hear Us Out isn't the only choice. You should check out our friends over at It Takes Two podcast. It's a podcast where 2 people take 2 films with the same plot or premise, watch and discuss them. Films like Gremlins and Critters, or The Truman Show on EdTV. Lisa and Nick don't stop there though. They get creative and compare some unexpected movies. Some that you don't see the connection until you realise that they can be described in the same way. They launch new episodes every second Tuesday, or Monday if you're in New Zealand. Find them on your favourite podcast service, or check the link in our description down below. That's It Takes Two podcast. Tell them Hear Us Out sent you. So, Paul, we're coming down to the sharp end of this particular grid. We can talk about all the films we didn't pick all night, which says an awful lot about Tom Cruise's body of work. And people will think, well, is he who you think of when you think of Oscar-winning best performance ever? No, he's Tom Cruise movie star, but he has an awful lot of good performances. That's one of the reasons that this is worth doing. It's one of the reasons that we hope people are enjoying this particular episode. If you disagree with our picks, get in the comments down below. Let us know. Also, let us know what Tom you'd like us to do next.
Yeah.
Paul, I do believe it's your turn.
So I'm going to go with Oblivion.
And this one was a no-brainer when I picked it as part of your list. I knew it was going to have to feature.
Yeah. If no one knows about Oblivion, it's a high sci-fi kind of film, which makes you question self a lot, which is another kind of weird one for Tom Cruise. But this one is entirely ruined by the trailer. So if you haven't watched Oblivion, don't just make the plunge. Don't watch the trailer. It gets completely ruined by the trailer. But yeah, there's no one I could have thought of picking for other than Tom Cruise for this role. Couldn't think of it. The film is about essentially a team. There's a team. Tom Cruise is essentially a protector. Another person is a controller essentially. I'm just gonna look up her name quickly, but
Olga Kurylenko.
Yeah, so they are essentially minding these massive hydro extractors, which are sending energy up to a safe haven for humans. It is after a war with a alien species, or an alien race, and they've been left there to kind of essentially protect these massive fueling systems, kind of thing. But it's the scene. The kind of thing that sold me is the scene of Tom Cruise describing the baseball game, the World Series baseball game in the stadium.
Love that scene.
It's like I can't see anyone else having that scene kind of thing. His whole believable Tom Cruise himself has a whole adventure explorer kind of personality trait to him. And he definitely brings it into Oblivion as his character. So it feels like it's very Tom Cruise written character, and the reason that the film progresses is based on that feel of adventure and explorer kind of traits. And Tom Cruise just definitely he is just that person. And to be able to explain, the nostalgia and reminiscing of the baseball game and stuff like that is all just fantastic kind of pieces and stuff. In a film that's literally probably got about 3 main people in it.
Yeah, it's a small cast in a big world. I love the movie. I knew you were going to pick it, which is why it was in my original shortlist. And then I went, I don't need to. Paul's got that one covered. There was no way it was no way it was going to drop out of your top 5. So I was like, brilliant. I love Paul. He's keeping it in there for me. That's great.
like, yeah, I guess I'm very predictable in that kind of sense, but like, it's
No, in a
like,
good way.
I don't know that as in like, yeah, but it's the thing that I have to say about this film is I know a lot of people say that it's not good, and I definitely will tell you that it's because of the trailer. The trailer ruins this film. It is along the lines of Terminator.
Are there people that don't like Oblivion?
Yeah, because
Wow.
of the mystery, because the mystery getting ruined in the trailer.
Oh, I suppose, yeah, I guess. And I suppose in some ways this isn't going to be some people's cup of tea, let's say, either. Particularly those people that really don't like Tom Cruise.
No, but people who don't like Tom Cruise and don't like sci-fi are not going to enjoy it. But
It's
I
true.
know there's a lot of people who watched the trailer and then went and watched the film, and they were just like, "But like a major part was spoiled within the trailer itself," kind of thing. So I'm always just like, "Did you?" When people go, "Yeah, it's not a great film," and I go, "Did you watch the trailer first?" And they go, "Yeah," and it's like, "Did it ruin it for you?" And he goes, "Yeah, kind of," and it's just like, that's my answer. It's
Yeah.
like I got to watch the film without the trailer.
That's and I don't believe I'd seen the trailer either, to be honest. Maybe there's something to that. Although you take something like War of the Worlds and you kind of go trailer or not. War of the Worlds is divisive. You can enjoy some of it, you can hate lots of it. There are people who like it, people who don't like it. I probably fall somewhere in between. I feel ambivalence towards it, which is damning praise. But Oblivion, I'm on the boat with you there. In fact, Paul, my next pick is going to prove one thing: that by the end of this episode, people are going to realize that between 2012 and 2015, all those movies pretty much are going to feature somewhere on our lists. Because this one's going to surprise you, I think. I don't think you're going to think that I'm going to have chosen Jack Reacher.
I just
Did you have an inkling? Did you have
just
an
as you were
inkling?
going through that, like when you were just going through like running up to saying Jack Reacher, I was just like, is he gonna pick Jack Reacher?
Yeah. And I'm going to pick it for one very simple reason. Of all of his movies, including, Top Gun Maverick doesn't make the list, by the way, folks. It's an amazing sequel.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise is great in it, and it's all amazing. It's all brilliant. It's as great as we've all said. But it doesn't deserve a place in the only five when it comes to just Tom Cruise when I'm thinking of it. The reason Jack Reacher does is it is easily the most enjoyable movie he has made for me. Just pure enjoyable. If I want to watch, that movie we were like, do you know what I could watch right now? I could watch Jack Reacher. Do you know when that's true? Always. That's always true. There is never a time of day or night or mood or season or stress or happiness where I don't think, if Jack Reacher was on right now, would I watch it on TV? Yes, I would. I know that the Lee Child's book, the TV show that they're making with the big huge guy, that's more in keeping with the books themselves. I despise the sequel, but I love Tom Cruise's Jack Reacher. That movie, I think it's fabulous.
I definitely get where you're coming from. Like Jack Reacher is a very enjoyable film. It's a very rewatchable film.
Oh, yeah.
Like I would definitely put it in a list of rewatchable films that I have in kind of, if they're either on or I'm just like, I don't know what to watch right now. There's a short list of movies that I've seen before that I can definitely just put on and enjoy. And Jack Reacher is definitely on that list.
Yeah.
So
The story is so good, so well put together. Tom Cruise has to play a badass who's very much in control. He also adds humor to it. The rest of the cast are amazing. Max von Sydow's in this thing. You got Rosamund Pike. You got Robert Duvall, for God's sakes.
yeah.
It plays itself out so nicely and sequentially and opens up like a reverse whodunit. But you've got Tom Cruise being Tom Cruise the whole time in it. I would not have enjoyed Jack Reacher as much without Tom Cruise bringing what he brought to it. It would still be a great movie all in itself. I'm just really happy that those two things converged. And I will never run out of ways to defend this. Even if somebody goes, but what about this? Or it's crap because of that, or blah, blah, blah. I'll go, yeah, probably. But get that noise out of my face now. Because Jack Reacher's on, and I love watching Jack Reacher.
But that's yeah. As I said, rewatchability is a very big important play to us.
Oh, yeah. For sure. So, Paul, how many do we have left?
I have one.
I think you have one left. So I'm going to throw up. Well, I'll throw it up on its own, rather than just throwing up all your picks, because it also happens to be between 2012 and 2015.
Yeah.
So you've got Jack Reacher, Oblivion, and then Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah. Edge of Tomorrow.
Live, die,
Die,
repeat.
repeat. There you go.
God, whatever people want to call it, one of the most criminally, It and Dread, most criminally underserved movies in the history of time when it comes to their ad campaigns, people's awareness and understanding of what they were going to get to see. And just like Dread, I put it, without hesitation, I put it into my, kind of top 50 films of all time. I just do. I really do. I think it's brilliant.
It's a great film. Like, the thing is that not only is it the production value of the whole film itself, kind of thing. Because like you can like I'm gonna go through the things that you just given granted, kind of thing. The production value is amazing. The story is an interesting one, kind of thing. It is based on a manga, but in no way is it in any way kind of like really kind of bringing that any element of that in, except for kind of main plots, kind of thing, and characters. But the biggest part to this is the characters within it, because Tom Cruise plays a marketing advertisement person. He's like the PR guy for the army, who's trying to get people to recruit. Like, so Edge of Tomorrow is about essentially an alien race invades Earth. They really plow into Earth and stuff like that. They're really like, advancing quite a lot. They're doing this last big huge battle where they're gonna really commit a lot of troops into it. Tom Cruise has been pinnacle in this kind of like campaign, recruitment campaign kind of thing, and then he's roped into going to the front lines, in which he does not want to go. He's a very loathsome, sniveling kind of like weasel character at the start, and then something happens to him which makes him have to grow and evolve. And
yeah, we've got the Groundhog Day mechanism in effect. Like, it's pure and brilliant sci-fi. But Paul, no matter how you describe this movie, I will always say the same thing about it. Anybody asks me about it, I always go, it's a movie where Tom Cruise starts off as exactly the reasons you think you don't like Tom Cruise. Yeah. And then you get he rehabilitates himself to you, with you, through an entire movie. So I think you could send somebody who absolutely dislikes Tom Cruise, not the character he's playing in this, but you're somebody who really dislikes Tom Cruise, come here, watch this. Because they are given this dislikable, sniveling, low end of the moral totem pole person.
Yep. And
they get to watch that be systematically beaten out of them as he grows as a person and comes out the other side as, I really like Tom Cruise now. Because the film rehabilitates him for people who don't like him. And that's a hell of a thing for a script to do. It's a hell of a thing for an actor to be able to do.
Yeah. Like, it's a phenomenal self-film.
Yeah.
And like, alongside with Emily Blunt, he's just fantastic. All the characters are really interesting, and you get to know a lot of them because, as I said, it's a Groundhog Day effect. Bill Paxton is in the film as the sergeant.
Brilliant.
And
I love that.
Rest in peace, Bill Paxton, because like him, and he is a pillar of sci-fi films. And having him in this film is just another cornerstone of why, like, having him be the sergeant and knowing the history of him being in, like, Terminator and Aliens and stuff like that, and like, he's just fantastic. But like Tom Cruise alongside Emily Blunt are just a fantastic duo partnership, and Tom Cruise's character, his evolution of hardening up, it's not only is it a personality kind of thing, it's a physical thing as well. Like, that's a big thing, the way that he walks and stuff like that at the start of the film. You slowly see him growing into kind of a soldier kind of thing, where he's like straight, like, back up, head up, straight, shoulders, everything. Like, he's physically walking and conducting himself differently to a point of being menacing at one point. The part where he's like, like one of the points where he's put into the mech suit and he's just like, because as we said, it's a Groundhog Day, so he's seen as a rookie, and the Tom Cruise just orders this guy about getting him more ammo and more stuff, and like it really freaks the guy out, kind of thing, because it's a real kind of like, just get me this stuff, kind of hardened veteran soldier kind of thing.
It's the beauty of how it's written, but also how it's acted, that he starts off as a representation of what somebody would want to represent the army or the military as, to then being an actual representation of the military. It's the lack of respect that he has for an organization that he's promoting is then turned as the movie goes on to show the real core bravery, sacrifice, understanding of what it is to be in the military, in the sense that he had no sense of that before. So there are many underlying lines of progress, change, rehabilitation, perspective that are gained not just through the sci-fi mechanism, but through the portrayal that Tom Cruise brings. And I think that's why I will never get sick of Edge of Tomorrow either.
I actually feel like watching it.
I feel like we should both just knock off now and go watch that. So Paul, I'm putting yours up on screen because you're 5, where Risky Business, Interview with a Vampire, Vanilla Sky, Oblivion, and Edge of Tomorrow. And I agree with those picks. Like, Vanilla Sky is the only one that I have to go and complete my watch of. But I gotta say, if I had never got a chance to add 5, I would have been happy to go take what Paul's given. Because it's a really good... from starter to dessert, Risky Business to Edge of Tomorrow. It's a pretty good representation of Tom Cruise.
Yeah, I couldn't. That was weird. I couldn't agree more. It's a very good cross section of his body of work and stuff. So I that's why I chose it. I chose to kind of, I guess, all the elements and stuff.
So Paul, I'm going to throw up mine now, which means I cheated because Edge of Tomorrow was up there for me. So we only have 9. So I have Rain Man, Edge of Tomorrow, Collateral, American Made, and Jack Reacher. Again, I went for that cross section of what Tom Cruise is able to do, similar to you.
All fantastic picks as well. Like I couldn't see them. It's very hard to come up with another top 9.
Yeah, but that's why I'm gonna go ahead and say, should we mention the Mission Impossibles? I'm gonna throw up Mission Impossible, like Fallout, I guess, but Mission Impossible, kind of, let's say from 3 onwards, but 4, 5, and 6 at least. Whew. They actually are they're onto something. Like, it's good stuff. Now, I'm not going to make that one of my picks for 10th. I'm going to get a bit weirder than that. I just wanted them to get the honourable mention. What I'm going to go for is Jerry Maguire. And here's why. Okay. Yeah. I don't want there to be 10 Tom Cruise. Okay, let's go through the 10 again. And you tell me where there's romance without sci-fi, let's say. Tell me where there is a conventional... He's a leading man, yet he's done very few leading man, romantic love interest roles.
Yeah, without a sci-fi element, yeah, definitely.
So, Interview with a Vampire, Oblivion, not exactly. Risky Business, I don't want to get into the whole prostitution angle there even. Vanilla Sky, as mad as a bag of hammers as it all is. Even, pick anything on the list. Except Jerry Maguire. And he pulled it off. Jerry Maguire does not get remembered as well as it should. I remember going to the cinema to see that. I remember how people felt about it before Show Me the Money became too big a bloody catchphrase. Oh, You Had Me at Hello, all those things that came out of it. Everybody really liked and respected Jerry Maguire until they didn't, because it kind of got too much exposure. He was a fantastic romantic lead. Just one more thing in our top 10. I will swap out my Live, Die, Repeat Edge of Tomorrow, and I'll say Jerry Maguire, because the guy can do romantic comedy drama as well, which is bloody impressive.
I can't disagree with you. Like, it's Jerry Maguire, I think, is a fun film. it's a fun Tom Cruise film. Like I do say that. So yeah, no, I can't fault you in any way. Kind of that. That's also probably one of the most recent Tom Cruise films I've also watched. I watched Maverick, obviously, but I think Tobey Maguire is probably Jerry Maguire, not Tobey Maguire.
Tobey Maguire would have been a really interesting movie.
It would be, yeah, it's just Tobey Maguire. It's a documentary. Yeah, Jerry Maguire is it's probably one of the most recent ones that I watched with Tom Cruise. So yeah, it's a good film. It's a fun film. It's Drew Barrymore.
Renee Zellweger.
Renee Zellweger,
Yeah. I actually really put her on the map, and then she did her Bridget Joneses and stuff after that to kind of cement her place in the Hollywood elite. Paul, it's a weird 10. It's a 10 that if we wrote them down, I think both of you and I would have said, that's not going to be our final 10. There's no way. We're going to pick a Mission Impossible or a Top Gun or a Born in the Fourth or, Color of Money, whatever it might be. Something.
Maverick.
Cocktail. I don't know. You would just imagine other stuff would show up in there.
Yeah.
But this is a process that was eye-opening for me because I think these are the 10. These are the 10 that I think, between your list and my list, represent a cross-section of Tom Cruise that if I was to say, Paul, we're about to be dropped on a desert island, we've got to take 10 Tom Cruise films with us. Let's be smart about this. Let's pick stuff we want to bring that'll give us a variety. I think these are probably the 10 we'd end up with.
Yeah. I definitely think that Oblivion, Edge of Tomorrow, Jack Reacher will probably be the most burnt out.
Yeah.
Because they've got a lot of rewatchability, but that's not no threat about the other ones or anything.
No,
like that,
it's true though. Yeah, they're very digestible, very very digestible. So Paul, I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed getting your perspective. Now what we really need is everybody else's perspective. So, what should people do?
They should name their top 10. Now, once again, it's not in any particular order. We're not looking for the number one Tom Cruise film. Just your top 10 films of Tom Cruise. Put them down in the comments down below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Don't forget that we're trying to go for 500 subscribers, and trying to open that community tab just so that we can have even more conversations with our absolutely phenomenal audience. Which is so, give us a handout, and which is don't forget that we've also got friends of the show, which is It Takes Two, which is and Homebrew and Pop Culture, which is links in down below.
Links
as
down
well.
below, folks.
So
with that said, let us know what we got wrong. Let us know why you're right to pick other things. But whatever you do, just let us know. Thanks for hearing us out. I've been Patrick.
I've been Paul.
And we have been Hear Us Out. Fair play, Tom Cruise. You're better than most of us probably give you credit for. We'll see you next time.